Darcy, my family abandoned me at 17, and now they want back into my life. I'm Matthew. I'm 29 years old, and this is the story of how my entire family disappeared when I was 17, leaving me to fend for myself. 12 years later, when I finally made it on my own, they decided they wanted to be part of my life again. Spoiler alert, it didn't go the way they expected. It all started when I was 17. It was my senior year of high school, and like any teenager, I had plans for the future. I had earned a partial scholarship to study engineering at a state university. Nothing extraordinary, but it was my chance to get ahead. My parents were never very affectionate people, but I never thought they were cruel either. My older sister, Carla, was always the favorite. The one who got the best grades, never caused trouble. The one who, according to my parents, had a future. My younger brother, Diego, was the baby of the family and could get away with anything. I was the middle child, the one who always went unnoticed. I wasn't bad in school, but I wasn't exceptional either. I didn't get into trouble, but I didn't stand out in anything special. I was invisible in my own family. The first sign that something was wrong came during Christmas break of my senior year. My parents were talking in hushed tones more than usual, shutting down conversations when I walked into the room. Carla, who had already finished college and was working in another city, came home for the holidays, and I noticed she was also involved in these secret conversations. "Everything okay?" I asked one day when I found them whispering in the kitchen. "Yes, honey. It's just grown-up stuff," my mom replied, with that forced smile she gave me when she wanted me to stop asking questions. During January, things got weirder. I noticed my parents started getting rid of things. At first I thought it was New Year's cleaning, but then I saw they were selling furniture. "Why did you sell the good couch?" I asked. "We need the money for some things," was all the explanation I got. In February, I came home from school and found boxes stacked in the garage. When I asked what was happening, my dad told me they were organizing. But something didn't add up. Why were they packing things if they were just organizing? The day that changed my life forever was a Wednesday afternoon, March 14th. I came home after staying late at school for a group project, and the house was strangely quiet. "Mom, Dad?" I called out, but no one answered. I went upstairs to my room, and there it was, a note on my bed, written in my mom's handwriting. "Matthew, we've decided to move to Texas. Your father got a better job there, and it's an opportunity we can't pass up. We know you're almost an adult and can take care of yourself. You're a smart kid and you'll figure it out. There's $500 in the kitchen drawer to help you until you finish high school. We already talked to your Aunt Rosa about letting you stay with her if you need to. We love you." That was it. 12 years of life together summarized in one paragraph. No goodbye, no conversation, no real explanation. Just, "You'll figure it out." I stood there in my empty room, because yes, they had even taken Diego's stuff, reading that note over and over, thinking maybe it was some cruel joke. But it wasn't. They were gone. I ran downstairs to the kitchen, and sure enough, there was the $500. There was also a smaller note saying they had paid the house rent through the end of the month, so I had 2 weeks to get organized. I called Aunt Rosa immediately. "Oh, honey," she said with an uncomfortable voice. "Yes, your mom called me. Look, I'd love to help you, but we're also going through tough financial times, plus my house is very small, and with my 3 kids." At that moment, I understood that not only had my parents abandoned me, it had been a family decision. Everyone knew, and no one had said anything. The next few days were a nightmare. I tried calling my parents, but their phones were disconnected. I wrote to Carla on Facebook, but she had blocked me. It was like I had ceased to exist for them. I had 2 options, give up or fight. And despite feeling destroyed, something inside me refused to give up. The first thing I did was talk to my school counselor, Mr. Morales. He was an older man who had always been kind to me, and when I told him what had happened, he was quiet for a long time. "Matthew," he finally said, "what they did to you is wrong. Very wrong. But now you have to decide what you're going to do about it." Mr. Morales helped me contact social services, but since I was already 17 and only a few months away from turning 18, there wasn't much they could do officially. However, he helped me get a part-time job at a grocery store and put me in touch with a program for vulnerable youth. He also talked to some teachers, and my math teacher, Mrs. Gonzalez, offered to rent me her guest room for very little money. "Just until you graduate and get stable," she told me. The next few months were the hardest of my life. I worked from 4 to 10 p.m. every day after school, studied late into the night, and survived on sandwiches and ramen noodles. But I did it. I graduated high school with a 3.5 GPA. Not perfect, but considering the circumstances, I felt proud. College was another challenge. My partial scholarship covered tuition, but I needed money for books, food, and a place to live. I got a full-time job at a warehouse during the night shift, from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., and took classes during the day. I slept when I could, sometimes only 3 to 4 hours, but I was determined to make it. During my first years of college, there were many nights when I stayed awake wondering why my family had abandoned me. What had I done wrong? Why did Diego and Carla deserve a new life in Texas, but not me? Was I so unimportant to them? The answer came 4 years later, in a way I never expected. I was in my last semester of college when I got a call from an unknown number. It was my cousin Lucia, Aunt Rosa's daughter. "Matthew," she said nervously, "I know it's weird that I'm calling, but you need to know something about your family. It turns out my dad never got a better job in Texas. The truth was that he had lost his job in our city and had accumulated a lot of debt from gambling. The move to Texas wasn't an opportunity, it was an escape." "But why didn't they take me?" I asked. "Because," Lucia explained, "they thought it would be easier to start over without having to worry about supporting another child. Carla was already independent, Diego was younger, and they needed him to qualify for some welfare programs. But you were in the middle. You were almost an adult, but still needed support. It was more convenient to leave you behind." That conversation destroyed me, but it also freed me. I finally understood that their abandonment hadn't been my fault. It had been a selfish and cowardly decision. I graduated college with honors in computer engineering. I got an excellent job at a tech company and slowly started building the life I wanted. It took years, but eventually I was able to buy my own apartment, a decent car, and start saving money. At 25, I met Andrea, an amazing graphic designer who became my girlfriend and later my wife. When I told her my story, she couldn't believe a family could do something like that. "I can't imagine abandoning my child," she told me, no matter how difficult the situation was. At 27, Andrea and I bought our first house. It wasn't a mansion, but it was ours. I also started my own software development company, specializing in applications for small businesses. Things were going well, better than I ever imagined. And then, just when I had managed to build a stable and happy life, they came back. Update 1. It was a Saturday morning when the doorbell rang. Andrea was at yoga, and I was enjoying a quiet coffee while reviewing some work projects. I opened the door expecting to see the mailman or a neighbor. It was my mom. She looked older, obviously, with more gray hair and wrinkles. But what struck me most was her expression. She was smiling as if nothing had happened, as if it was normal to show up at my door after 12 years. "Matthew," she exclaimed, trying to hug me, "look how big you are. And this house is beautiful." I was paralyzed for a few seconds. "Mom," I managed to say. "Yes, honey, it's me. Aren't you going to invite me in? Your dad is parking the car." Sure enough, I saw my dad getting out of an old, rusty car. He looked terrible. He'd lost a lot of weight and seemed sick. "What are you doing here?" I asked, not moving from the entrance. "Oh, honey, don't be like that. We're family. Can't you be happy to see us?" My dad approached, and I could see he really looked bad. He had yellowish skin and walked with difficulty. "Hello, son," he said in a weak voice. "I'm so glad to see you." Despite everything that had happened, seeing him so sick affected me. I let them in, but I didn't feel comfortable. "How did you find me?" I asked once they were sitting in my living room. "Oh, honey, it wasn't easy, but your cousin Lucia helped us. We told her we wanted to reconnect with you." Lie. Lucia had told me they had pressured her for my information, telling her it was a family emergency. "And Carla, Diego?" I asked. My mom became uncomfortable. "Well, Carla is very busy with her job and her kids. Diego has had some problems." "What kind of problems?" "He got into drugs," my dad admitted. "He's in rehab right now." I was starting to understand why they had shown up after so long. My mom looked around my house with obvious, envious admiration. "Matthew, you've done so well. This house is beautiful. What do you do for work?" "I'm a computer engineer. I have my own company," I replied dryly. "How wonderful. she exclaimed. "I always knew you were smart." The irony of that statement hit me like a slap. If they had always known I was smart, why had they abandoned me? The conversation continued uncomfortably for an hour. They kept acting as if the last 12 years were just a simple parenthesis in our lives, as if they had been on an extended vacation instead of completely abandoning me. Finally, my dad coughed and my mum gave him a meaningful look. "Matthew," my dad said, "we need to talk to you about something important." Here came the real reason for their visit. "I'm sick, son. I have liver cirrhosis. The doctors say I need a transplant, but I also need a lot of treatment and—" He trailed off. My mom continued, "We don't have health insurance, honey, and the treatments are very expensive. We thought that, well, maybe you could help us. We're family after all." I stayed, quiet, processing what they had just said. They had shown up after 12 years of complete silence because they needed money for medical expenses. "How much do you need?" I asked. "Well," my mom said, "the doctors say it could be around $200,000 for all the treatment." "That's a lot of money," I said. "Yes, but you have a successful business, this beautiful house. We know you've done very well." At that moment, Andrea returned from yoga. She was surprised to see two strangers in our living room. "Andrea," I said, "these are my parents." Andrea's face went through several emotions: surprise, confusion, and then something like anger when she realized who they really were. "Nice to meet you," she said politely, but I could see the tension in her body. My parents stayed another 30 minutes, during which my mom kept making comments about our house, our furniture, my car in the garage. It was obvious they were assessing how much money they could get from me. When they finally left, after I promised to think about helping with the medical expenses, Andrea and I sat in silence for a while. "I can't believe they just showed up like that," she finally said. "After abandoning you, now they want your money." "I know," I replied, "but seeing him so sick—" "Matthew," Andrea interrupted, "I understand you feel bad about your dad's illness, but are you really going to let them emotionally manipulate you after what they did to you?" She was right, but it was complicated. No matter how much they had hurt me, they were still my parents. Over the next few days, they wouldn't stop calling me. Each conversation was more urgent than the last. "Matthew, your dad is getting worse. The doctors say he needs to start treatment soon. We're the only family you have, honey." That last phrase especially bothered me. Now I was the only family they had. Where had they been when I needed them? A week after their first visit, they showed up again, this time with Diego. Durasamna update. 2. Diego looked terrible. He was 24 but looked older. He was thin, with deep dark circles under his eyes and that empty look that people who have struggled with addictions have. "Hey, brother," he said when I opened the door. "Diego," I replied, not knowing what else to say. "Aren't you going to hug me?" he asked with a sad smile. I hugged him, but it felt strange. This wasn't the 12-year-old kid I remembered. This was a stranger who shared my genes. This time the conversation was different. Diego told me about his drug problems, about how it started in high school and escalated until he lost several jobs and ended up living on the streets. "Mom and Dad got me off the streets," he told me. "They paid for rehab. They've been taking care of me." "That's good," I said, genuinely relieved that he had gotten help. "But now," he continued, "with Dad's situation, they can't keep paying for my treatment. The follow-up program costs $1,000 a month, and if I don't continue it, the doctors say I could relapse." There was the second request for money. My mom intervened. "Matthew, I know it's a lot to ask, but you're the only one of us who's financially stable. Carla has her own financial problems with the house and the kids." "Does Carla know you're here?" I asked. My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Well," my mum said, "she thinks we should solve our problems on our own. She says it's not fair to ask you for help. After, well, you know." Interesting. So Carla, the favorite daughter, thought it was unfair to ask me for money, but my parents had decided to do it anyway. "And what do you think, Diego?" I asked my brother. "Do you think it's okay to ask me for money after they abandoned me?" Diego became uncomfortable. "Look, brother, I was a kid when that happened. I didn't understand what was going on. I thought you would come with us later. Did you ever ask about me?" "Yes," he admitted. "But Mom and Dad always said you were fine, that you had decided to stay to finish school." More lies. They had told Diego that I had chosen to stay. The visit lasted 3 hours. During that time, my parents and Diego told me about how difficult their life in Texas had been. My dad had never gotten a stable job. They had lived in cheap apartments, and Diego had started using drugs to deal with the confusion of the move. It was all very sad, but I also noticed something else. None of them had asked me how my life had been. No one had shown curiosity about how I had managed to survive, graduate, build a career. It was as if they assumed everything had been easy for me. When they left, I felt emotionally exhausted. Andrea found me sitting in the kitchen with my head in my hands. "What are you thinking of doing?" she asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to help them. They're my family." "Matthew," Andrea said, sitting next to me, "did they ever ask you how you managed to pay for college? How you got a job? If you were okay during all these years?" I thought about it. "No, they didn't. Doesn't it seem strange to you that they're not curious about your life, but they do want your money?" She was right. In neither of the two visits had they shown genuine interest in me as a person. They were only interested in what I could do for them. That night I decided to do something I should have done since the first visit: investigate. I called Lucia and asked her to tell me everything she knew about my parents' real situation in Texas. What I discovered made me angrier than I expected. It turns out my parents hadn't been struggling all this time. During the first 5 years in Texas, my dad had gotten decent jobs. They had bought a house, new cars, and had lived comfortably. The problem had started about 3 years ago, when my dad began gambling seriously. Not just at casinos, but gambling online and borrowing money at high rates to keep playing. He had lost the house, the cars, and they had accumulated enormous debts. The cirrhosis wasn't just bad genetic luck. It was the result of years of alcoholism that had worsened with the stress of debt. As for Diego, it was true he had drug problems, but he had also been stealing money from my parents to maintain his habit. He had sold things from the house, forged checks, and lied constantly. The perfect family they had chosen over me turned out to be a disaster. That information changed everything for me. The next day, when my mom called to ask if I had made a decision about helping them, I told her I wanted to meet to talk. We agreed to meet at a neutral cafe. I arrived first and waited for them at a back table. When my parents and Diego arrived, they looked hopeful. They probably thought I was going to agree to help them. They sat down, and my mom immediately said, "So, honey, have you thought about what we discussed?" "Yes," I replied. "I've thought a lot, but first I want to ask you something." "Of course, whatever you want." "Did you ever wonder if I was okay when you abandoned me?" My mom became uncomfortable. "Oh, Matthew, don't say abandoned. We knew you were smart and that you would figure it out. But did you wonder how, if I had food to eat, where I was going to live, how I was going to pay for college?" "Well," my dad coughed, "we knew Aunt Rosa would help you." "Aunt Rosa didn't help me. She told me she didn't have space for me." Uncomfortable silence. "Do you want to know how I figured it out?" I continued. "I worked from age 17. I slept in a borrowed room. I ate 1 meal a day for months. I worked night shifts at a warehouse while studying during the day. There were days when I didn't sleep at all." My mom started crying. "Oh, honey, we didn't know." "You didn't know because you never asked. In 12 years, you never called to know if I was alive. We thought it was better to give you space," my dad murmured. "Space? Or was it more convenient to forget I existed?" Diego finally spoke. "Brother, we had a hard time too." "Oh, really?" I interrupted. "Because Lucia told me another story. She told me about the house you bought in Texas, the new cars, the vacations you took. She told me Dad lost everything gambling, not from bad luck." My parents' faces went pale. "And she also told me that you, Diego, have been stealing money from them for drugs. Is that the great united family that was worth more than including me?" My mom kept crying. "Matthew, please let us explain." "No," I said, standing up from the table. "I don't want explanations anymore. I want you to understand something. You made the decision that I wasn't part of your family when I was 17. That decision has consequences." "But we're your family," my dad protested. "No," I replied firmly. "My family is Andrea. My family are the friends who supported me when you abandoned me. My family are the people who were there when I needed them." "Matthew, please," my mom begged. "Your dad is dying." "And that's very sad," I said genuinely. "But it's not my responsibility. You chose to build a family without me. Now solve your problems without me." I headed toward the exit but stopped and turned around. "And one more thing," I added. "If you show up at my house again or bother my wife, I'll call the police. I don't want to see you again. Update 3. That was the last time I spoke to my parents in person, but it wasn't the end of the story. Over the next few weeks, they wouldn't stop calling me. First, they were pleading calls, then they became more aggressive. "You're ungrateful," my mom yelled at me during one call. "After everything we did for you." "What did you do for me?" I asked. "Because abandoning me doesn't count as something good." "We gave you a house, food, education for 17 years, she replied. "That's called being parents," I told her. "It's the minimum you're supposed to do. It's not something extra I should be grateful for." Eventually, I had to block their numbers. But then they started using other methods. My cousin Lucia told me they were talking to other relatives, trying to paint me as the cruel son who refused to help his dying father. Some relatives called me to ask me to reconsider my decision. "Matthew," my uncle Carlos told me, "I know you have your reasons to be angry, but he's your father. He's dying." "Uncle," I replied, "where were you when I was 17 and left without family? Did you call to ask if I was okay? Did you offer help?" Silence. "Exactly. None of you worried about me then. You're not going to make me feel guilty now." The emotional blackmail campaign lasted 2 months. Finally, I decided to write a letter that I sent to all the relatives who had contacted me. In that letter, I explained exactly what had happened when I was 17, how I had managed to survive alone, and why I had made the decision not to help my parents. The letter caused a stir in the family. Some relatives supported me, saying they hadn't known the details of my abandonment. Others said I was being resentful and should forgive. I didn't care. I had made my decision and was at peace with it. 6 months later, Lucia called to tell me my dad had died. It wasn't a surprise. We knew he was very sick. For a moment, I felt sadness. Despite everything, he had been my father for the first 17 years of my life. But I didn't feel guilt. I had made the right decision. I didn't go to the funeral. Instead, Andrea and I went to lunch at a nice restaurant and toasted to the future. Diego tried to contact me after the funeral, but I didn't respond. He had had the opportunity to build a relationship with me when they first showed up, but he had chosen to only ask for money. Final update. It's been 2 years since I refused to help my parents, and my life has continued to improve. My software company has grown considerably. I now have 12 employees, and we just signed an important contract with a restaurant chain to develop their online ordering system. Andrea and I bought a bigger house last year. We're thinking about having children soon, and I want to make sure our children never doubt they are loved and valued. I've also been involved in programs for vulnerable youth. I give talks at high schools about how to access resources for college, and my company offers scholarships for students who are alone and need support. It's my way of helping other young people who might be going through what I went through. As for my biological family, Diego tried to contact me once more last year. He had gotten a job and wanted to reconnect with me. I sent him a message saying I was glad he was doing well, but that I wasn't interested in rebuilding a relationship. He made the decision to be part of the family that abandoned me. Now he has to live with the consequences. My mom, according to Lucia, moved back to our hometown after my dad's death. She's living with my Aunt Rosa, the same one who didn't have space for me when I was 17. Apparently, she did have space for my mom when she needed it. The irony isn't lost on me. I've learned that family isn't just about shared blood. It's about the people who are there when things get tough, who celebrate your successes without expecting anything in return, and who love you unconditionally. Mr. Morales, my high school counselor, came to my wedding. Mrs. Gonzalez, the teacher who rented me her room, still sends me Christmas cards. These are examples of real family. My biological parents were simply people who shared my DNA, but didn't understand what it means to be true family. Sometimes people ask me if I regret my decision. The answer is no. I don't regret it for a second. Could I have financially helped my sick father? Yes, I had the money. But doing so would have sent the message that it was okay to abandon your child and then come back when you need something. It would have validated their behavior and possibly opened the door to future manipulations. More importantly, it would have betrayed that 17-year-old kid who fought to survive when everyone abandoned him. That kid deserved justice, not betrayal. Epilogue. Last month, Andrea and I received the best possible news. We're expecting our first child. When I saw the positive pregnancy test, I couldn't help but cry. I'm going to be a dad, and I'm going to be the kind of father my child will never doubt loves them. I'm going to be there for every soccer game, every school play, every important moment, and every difficult moment. My child will never wonder if they're important to me. They'll never wake up one day and find a note telling them to figure it out on their own. They'll grow up knowing they're loved, valued, and that they'll always have a home with me. That's the difference between being a biological father and truly being a dad. My biological family chose money, convenience, and their own problems over their son. I choose my family every day, without conditions, and that, friends, is the difference between blood family and real family. For anyone going through something similar, I want you to know this. You don't owe anything to people who hurt you, regardless of whether you share their blood. Family isn't who gave you life. Family is who makes your life worth living. Sometimes the hardest decision is also the right one, and sometimes closing one door is what you need to do to open better ones. My story isn't unique. There are many young people who have been abandoned by families who should have protected them. If you're one of them, I want you to know you can make it. It won't be easy, but it's possible. And when you do make it, and you will, don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting the life you built with so much effort. You deserve respect. You deserve unconditional love, and you deserve a family that values you. If the people who gave you life can't give you that, then find the people who can. That's your true family. And there you have the whole story. I hope you enjoyed this story of overcoming injustice. I'd love to know what you think. Do you believe Matthew did the right thing by refusing to help his parents? Or do you think he should have put differences aside because of his father's illness? Leave me your comments below. I love reading your perspectives and experiences. If this story inspired you or made you reflect, don't forget to give the video a like. That helps me tremendously to keep bringing you more content like this. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that red subscribe button. Also share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to walk away from toxic relationships, even if they're family. Sometimes we all need that reminder that we deserve respect and genuine love. And speaking of more incredible stories like this one, right here on screen you have another story you can't miss. It's about a woman who discovered her husband had a double life, and the revenge she took is epic. Click to continue on the channel and hear that story. See you in the next video, and remember, you decide who gets to be part of your life.